Parents in Iowa are creating a lot of noise after being told children in preschool through high school would be forced in this little rural community to participate in Black Lives Matter Week of Action. Wake up, Mom and Dad. If this is happening in Iowa, of all places, you can be sure it's headed your way and probably is there already. I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. This is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Before we start, I want to remind everybody that we just launched our brand new FreedomProject Media app. This is big. It means that Facebook and Twitter have no way to co-opt what we're sending you. This is a big deal. All you have to do is download the app for free on your smartphone, tablet, your Apple TV, or your Roku, and you will instantly get access to thousands of hours of our content without tech morons stopping you. This includes every episode of The Dr. Duke Show, Katie's Healthy Republic, other shows, lectures, and educational animations. Simply search Freedom Project Media in your app store and make sure you allow notifications once you download it so we can send you this free content. Amazing. All right, Katie joins us now for a look at the health of our republic.
Black Lives Matter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Stacey Abrams, Andrew Cuomo. Some of these people have actually been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. I'd be shocked if I didn't already know the stupid of this era, and now I wouldn't be surprised if all of them get put into the mix. Let me explain. Up is down, down is up, left is right, and right is always wrong. That's the world at present. So of course we have people who incite violence, destruction, and a whole lot of chaos to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll let you know the names, and then I'll give you my picks for who might as well be nominated. But first, you must let me know in the comments who should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Please note, the snarkier the answers, the more entertaining it will be for me to read, so please step up to the plate. And maybe I'll give a special little shout out in next week's episode. Now that right there, that's incentive. Let's hop to it with the first nominee. Are you fucking kidding me? Black Lives Matter really is nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. The anarchists, the rioters, the abusers, these people. What, was Satan not available for nomination? At least at one point he was an angel. Here's a question. If Black Lives Matter wins the prize, who gets it? And what does it matter? They'll just burn it up anyway in the name of equality. And if they don't win, it'll be because, obviously, white supremacy. Nonetheless, Norwegian socialist member of parliament Peter Eide claimed Black Lives Matter deserves the award for their struggle against racism and racially motivated violence. BLM's call for systemic change have spread around the world, forcing other countries to grapple with racism within their own societies. Legacy from both the civil rights movement in America and the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. Damn Norwegian. But he's not the only one. On that same note, Stacey Abrams, the failure of a gubernatorial candidate for Georgia who still won't concede that she lost, has been nominated because she is labeled a voting rights activist and is compared to Reverend and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Another Norwegian socialist, Lars Haltbrekken, says so. Abrams' work follows in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s footsteps in the fight for equality before the law and for civil rights. Being a sore loser now equates to fighting for equality. That's why Abrams still says she is the justified governor of Georgia, even though she lost by nearly 55,000 votes.
This is not a speech of concession, because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. As a woman of conscience and faith, I cannot concede that.
If this is what qualifies you for a Nobel Peace Prize, why don't we just add a few more names? But first, if you like what you're seeing here on Healthy Republic and you want to see more, make sure you download our brand new Freedom Project Media app on any smart device that you're using. And make sure that you're sharing this video so everyone can see it. And now back with a couple more names that could be added to the Nobel Peace Prize nomination list. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why not? AOC is always a candidate for everything. I mean, she's just so honorable, venerable, and just this generation's Gandhi. From her dancing, her shot pouring, her get it girl attitude, and just general welcoming presence.
Hi everyone. Hey everybody. Hello everyone. How are you doing? Oh my goodness. Hey everybody.
I include this every time because you have to set the proper mood with AOC. Her Instagram Live videos must be turned into full-length productions so that future generations can know of what she offered this world. One beta tape will have enough capacity for all of the wisdom she has offered to date. This past week, she added several videos to her YouTube channel, including her explanation about almost dying at the Capitol on January 6th. She said that she didn't know if the Capitol police officer who came into her office was there to help or hurt her, as she hid in the bathroom. Then she did a comparison of the riots to abuse.
These folks who tell us to move on, that it's not a big deal, that we should forget what's happened, or even telling us to apologize, these are the same tactics of abusers. And I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And I haven't told many people that in my life.
First things first, if what she says in this video is true, then it's awful and whomever assaulted her should rot in hell. But there is no evidence of proof to go from. You can't prove her claims, and in this day and age, you must take what she says at horse face value. But you must use rationality, and this is AOC, whose track record shows she's not one to do so.
I just can't. I can't with folks that are saying we need to stop this unrest, we need to stop violence, as though charging someone $1,000 a month for insulin that they need to survive isn't violent. That is violent.
Ergo, I'm questioning her authenticity. She may have been scared, but was she actually in threat of dying or thinking she was going to die? And so when you equate someone just saying a mean comment to verbal abuse, which then you equate to physical abuse, your claims quickly lose authenticity. The video I just showed is fascinating because she actually put that video up this week on her YouTube, but it's actually from back in May, and it's talked about unrest and what you must do.
So if you want the end of unrest, then you should be asking for measures that actually liberate people in their lives from the oppression of economic and social inequity. And those are just some of my thoughts.
Bullshit. The dramatics and emotion always take over AOC's train of thought. That's why when she laid claim that Senator Ted Cruz almost had her murdered before she released this newest video, I'm more apt to call bullshit. Moving on to someone who actually is responsible for death. This scumbag, and I don't use that term loosely, Governor Andrew Cuomo might as well be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Cuomo is directly responsible for thousands of deaths of our nursing home residents because, he's so amazing. But this week, after we finally officially learn what we've known all along, that being that Cuomo's numbers on the number who died from COVID in the nursing homes was way higher than reported, he added insult to death.
New York State, we're only about 28% only. But we're below the national average in number of deaths in nursing homes. But who cares? 33, 28, died in a hospital, died in a nursing home. They died.
He's truly a hero. And he always has been in the eyes of the media and Hollywood.
On behalf of just me, but my family, but New Yorkers, bigger than that, the world, thank you for your leadership. Because, man, I right out of the gate, you were there for us. And I go, oh, you smart and you were honest. And
there will be a movie about this. Who do you want to play? Can't say Fauci because Fauci's already been taken by Brad Pitt.
Yeah, yes. He
Cuomo?
I guess I'll play Cuomo. I like.
It's a good part.
Yeah, he's doing what a president should do.
You came to me in a dream. You had on a very interesting ballet outfit, and you were dancing in the dream, and you were waving a wand and saying, I wish I could wave my wand and make this go away. And then you spun around and you danced away.
Lucky for all of us, nominations close on February 1st. But just so you know, any politician serving at the national level can nominate someone for the Nobel Peace Prize. The nominator only gets 2,000 words to say why that person should be nominated. And that really helps you understand how this class of non-peaceful people got nominated. Politicians making vague points to give their friends a prize. The Nobel Peace Prize started in 1901 and was awarded to people who did work to show unity among nations and have a desire to dwindle the military. So the One World Order people nominated this year, it makes so much more sense. I'll still view it as another everyone gets a trophy award. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Joined now by Alex Newman, our international correspondent. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Duke. Great to be with you.
Well, we have another story here about Black Lives Matter curriculum. It is now infusing every aspect of the curriculum. And if you think your kids are safe in rural places like Indiana or Iowa or Nebraska, you better think again. How do you keep them down on the farm, Alex, when they get transgender sex in first grade? This is an article that you wrote. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is out of Ames, Iowa, and we have reported this before, this Black Lives Matter Week of Action program. In fact, we scooped everybody else by at least a year, maybe 2 years. But what's happening now in Ames, Iowa, they're having a week of action for Black Lives Matter. And so they've got different themes they're going to do each day. And, a normal person would look at this and say, what in the world does that have to do with Black lives, right? They're learning transgenderism and how to be trans-affirming. They're learning queer theory and how to be queer-affirming. They're learning globalism. They're learning how to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. Like, what in the world does that have to do with Black lives? And, of course, the answer is nothing. This is Marxism masquerading as a racial justice program, because that way nobody can criticize it without being called a racist by the racists who are peddling it.
All right, so let's we're going to have a couple of segments here, and in the second segment I want to talk about how we got to the point where no one's questioning the fact that Black Lives Matter and globalism are the same thing. What a trick they've played on us, right? That to the progressive mind now and to the mind of our children, our kids are being taught that you only support black people if you want globalism. We'll talk about that in the second 5-minute segment here, but first, let's talk more about this program. Go into a little bit more depth about what kids are learning and how they're learning it.
Yeah, so they basically have an entire week where these programs are going to be taught. And if you look at some of the materials that the school district has made available, it is straight up critical race theory, Marxist propaganda, and LGBT extremism masquerading as an anti-racist curriculum. So they teach them about the value of transgenderism. They teach them about how glorious it is to be a homosexual. They teach them about how all of these identities are perfectly acceptable. And in fact, they are superior. And they don't use that word, but it's very strongly implied, because if you're not a transgender, homosexual, minority of some sort, then you are part of the oppressor class. Whereas if you are one of these things, then you get to be the victim. And being the victim is all the rage. So this is exactly the type of stuff that we reported on last week in one of the wealthiest districts in America, where they were peddling the critical race theory. And what I thought was so interesting, and I'll say it again, there was a Chinese mother in this school district who came out and spoke publicly and said, look, I lived through the barbarian butcher Chairman Mao, and this is exactly what he was forcing us to do in the schools with, slight variations, American characteristics versus Chinese characteristics, but the concept was the same. Try to split the children into different victim groups, oppressor groups, and so on, turn them against each other, turn them against their parents, convince them that their previous society was evil, but that the new glorious model that is emerging is wonderful. And that's what's happening. And, it boggles the mind. And I tell parents in rural school districts, because we hear this all the time, and I know you do too, dude. Well, we live in South Carolina, we live in Iowa, we live in Indiana or Oklahoma. This doesn't happen in our states. It is everywhere.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think needs to be explained a little more. We haven't done enough to explain this on the Dr. Duke show as well. Anti-racism, that's one of those little slips, one of those little transitional words that people don't think much about. But before, fighting racism was a tangible thing. You can teach kids to be tolerant of all races. That's not enough for the left anymore. They want something more than just racial equality. anti-racist teaching is actually proactively convincing kids that by the nature of their skin color, they're bigots. Nothing can be done about this except you constantly apologize and get out of the way of any program that big progressives want in the name of BLM.
That's right. And when you look at it, it is actually racist at its core. This idea that we're going to separate children based on the melanin content of their skin, it is inherently racist. And in fact, when you deal with little kids, and I've got a bunch of them, you realize they really don't see race as a thing. It's not until adults come in and start telling, oh, race this, race that, racial justice this, racial equity that they start noticing, oh, there's differences here. Maybe we should be thinking in these terms. So they are turning these kids into little racists. They know they're turning these kids into little racists, and they're doing it on purpose.
Well, Alex, after the break, we'll come back and look at some other implications of this, but I want to thank you for the story. Back with Alex Newman, our international correspondent, and we are talking about a story out of Ames, Iowa, where kids as young as preschool, 3 and 4-year-olds, are being taught anti-racist curriculum. And that doesn't have very much to do with that racism as far as we can tell. There's transgenderism, there's globalism, there's anti-capitalism, very little to do with actual race. As we said at the end of the last segment, anti-racism curriculum is a new invention. This isn't about equality. It's not about leveling the playing field. It's about teaching kids a very radical left-wing, almost communist version of how we're going to reorder and restructure society. To give you one example, Alex, we have a school here in Wisconsin, we'll do the story next week, where a number of teachers are have been put on leave because they had an assignment in the classroom where they were talking about if the kids were slave owners, how would they go about punishing slaves? This is the kind of lunacy we're seeing in the schools now. Help me get my mind around this. How do we go from Black Lives Matter, the idea that racial minorities have legitimate claims that we have to adjust, to the idea of globalism?
Well, that's the point, Duke. There is no obvious relation between the two because this is part of a much deeper and much more subversive agenda. Now, if you look at critical theory, and critical race theory is a subset of critical theory, they were never really about race. They were never really about gender. It's the same with communists always. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. So they want you focusing on race stuff. They want you focusing on racism, BLM, etc., while they're doing their magic over here. And this was very strategic. In fact, I've looked into the origins of critical theory, and it really comes out of the Frankfurt School in Frankfurt. This was a network of communists. They looked to Lenin and the Soviet Union as their ideological inspiration. They had some disagreements with the National Socialists, although the National Socialists and the communists, the Nazis, were really close cousins, but they had some disagreements, so they came over to the United States. They took up root at Columbia University and other prestigious American universities with the help, of course, of John Dewey. And they started spreading their poison in America, started painting the family as an authoritarian structure, the father as an authoritarian figure. And they thought, well, how do we dismantle the existing structures? Because we're never going to have a communist revolution as long as we have Christianity, as long as we have stable nuclear families led by strong father figures. We're never going to have a revolution as long as people are happy with their circumstances, as long as people are doing well materially. We've got to break down the culture. We've got to break down individual identities. And anybody who knows about brainwashing, in fact, if you look at what the communists did to American POWs in Vietnam and in Korea, the first critical step in that is breaking down all of their identities, their national identity, their family identity, even their gender identity now we're seeing. And after that, you have basically a blank slate to write on. So that's what's really happening here. They are preparing these students to not just submit to a totalitarian future, but to actively work toward a totalitarian future. And of course, they haven't taught them how to think. They haven't taught them logic. They haven't taught them real history. So they have no context. They can't understand what's going on here. They're being trained very much like Pavlov's dogs with behavioral psychology to believe that they're doing the right thing, that they are standing for righteousness and justice and truth by working to implement totalitarianism in their own communities and in their own country.
Well, it's interesting something you said as well, that the Frankfurt School, when they got to Columbia, started spreading their poison in America, which would become critical race theory that now we're teaching to 3-year-olds. it's interesting, isn't it, that they decided that, look, they looked around, they saw Christianity, they saw happy families led by fathers, they saw material prosperity, they saw how comfortable and cooperative and friendly Americans were, and decided, we got to have a communist revolution to fight this. All this happiness, all this love of God, all this love of brother, that's got to go in the name of these radical leftist revolutions. And the way we go after that is the nuclear family. And I think you're right, breaking down every aspect of the family. In the last little bit of time we have left, what alternatives do we have? Trump banned it at the federal level. No trainings for adults in critical race theory. Biden wrote it right back in on the first day.
Yeah, there is no hope for the public school systems, and I sound like a broken record, and I'll sound like a broken record until everybody listens. You've got to get your kids out of these indoctrination centers. If you love them, if you care about their future, if you want them to be happy, productive, decent human beings, you must get them out. It's not enough to try to unbrainwash them at dinner. You're gonna lose them. It's like playing Russian roulette with 5 rounds in the chamber. Chances are almost certain that you're gonna lose them.
And we got a big head start with the schools refusing to teach. The same school that wants to teach your kids leftist, radical, anti-American, anti-Christian garbage is already telling you we don't want to teach your kids at all during the virus. So you have a head start, Mom and Dad. No excuses. The public schools have already pushed you away. Walk away. Don't walk back to them when they finally open again. Alex, thanks for your time.
It's time for some real education. C.S. Lewis's collection of essays, known as God in the Dock, was assembled after Mr. Lewis's death, and there is a longer version that goes by the title Undeceptions, Essays on Theology and Ethics. In the essays, Lewis considers how in modern times people choose to put God on trial rather than accepting him as the ultimate judge of all things.
And this is the last, I'm so I could probably do 4 years of this, take us through the Biden administration every day, a dystopian quote from one of our great artists, literary artists of the past, warning us about what we've gotten ourselves into. But the problem is we're already into it, and there's very little optimism that we're going to climb out of it. Usually when republics give way to democracies, and as we saw in the last election, democracy is dead too. We are now in some kind of a quasi-oligarchical corporate government scheme system here, where democracy and freedom is really undercut, and a very small group of plutocrats run what's going on, including our disgusting government. And so we have a situation where all I can do one last time. Next week we'll try to get back to art, because there's got to be a break from all of this depressing nonsense that we've chosen for ourselves. We'll get back next week to looking at artworks, try to uplift and educate, not just depress and educate. But we want to close this dystopia, 3 weeks of dystopian warnings for the Joe Biden administration and the censors out there that are moving them to deplatform anybody who disagrees with them, to shut down free speech. This is perhaps my favorite quote. Of all the tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. What a great description of the left wing. Omnipotent, as if they know everything. Omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron, the excessively rich man's cruelty, may sometimes sleep. His greed and cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own consciences. They may be more likely to go to heaven, yet at the same time, likelier to turn it all into a hell on earth. The very kindness stings with intolerable insult. To be cured, which is what the left is telling us. Cured is the right word. 80 years ago, Lewis said this. They're going to cure us, right? Is that not what the left needs to do? Cure us for having voted for Trump. Cure us from having different worldviews than them. Cure us for wanting to protect our borders. Cure us from racism and misogyny and homophobia that's built into the very DNA of our country. To be cured, Lewis says, to be cured against one's will and cured of states which we may not regard as disease, is to be put on the level of those who have not yet reached the age of reason or those who never will. They will classify you with infants, imbeciles, and domestic animals. That's how the American left views you.
All right, just a reminder to please download our brand new Freedom Project Media app on your smart device. You're going to be able to watch all of our videos, including every episode of the Newman Report with Alex Newman. You also get in-depth interviews, all of our lectures, educational animations, and just so much more. Simply search Freedom Project wherever you download apps and make sure to allow for the notifications. Now we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we're going to give a shout out to Douglas from Valencia, California, all the way in Cali. Thank you, Douglas, for watching. And if you're a fan of the show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation to support the Patriot Club as a way to keep the show going. And as a little thank you, we're going to give you our signature tumbler. All you have to do to sign up is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now we're going to wrap things up with the fun fact of the day. A survey by bankrate.com in 2019 revealed that 63% of millennial homebuyers said they had buyer's remorse about purchasing their homes. Overall, about 44% of the U.S. homeowners had regrets about their home purchase.
And that will do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.